in the towns too. There may not be a lot of them, but they are there. So I think that would be a tier that would serve them as well. So I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's why last week like the previous week I asked, were we following the federal poverty guidelines?
Right.
I know sometimes it's controlled by the determining factors are controlled by the local government, and it was like, well, where's our stance on that, especially if we have like the tiered services?
Well, the interesting thing is that if you look at the federal guidelines, and then look at the least the most recent data available for our city, those guidelines would actually be a little high. As far as it would not include people that it should. That's what I mean by high.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the option to, as long as we include the federal standard, we can say, we can't say, for instance, if the federal standard is 20,000 a year, yes, you're in poverty. If we want to qualify for federal grants, we can't say, oh no, it's 30,000. But we can say it's 15,000. So we can allow people at a lower level of income. We can say it's 15 to 30, let's say. So we can say, or actually, I'm sorry, no, we can't say it's 15,000. We could say it's 30,000. I'm sorry, I got it reversed. So we could say people earning less than 30,000 a year, we're going to give you this free tier because the federal level is at 20,000. So we include that. We're just including more people by going up a step.
Increasing the eligibility.
Right. So I think we have to consider the cost of living in the city. We have to consider the available benefits to people that are on welfare or taking some kind of benefit. Retirees, people in poverty. There's a whole mass of people that right now I'm not sure that they would qualify if we went with the Fed standard.
Yeah, and then that's where the discrepancy comes in, unfortunately, especially for those who really are in dire need of certain federal programs and
right.
Social assistance. Yeah, it's kind of tough to see that.
Right. I think we could do it by saying, well, we're raising this because we're also including those people who have a specific need. They have children, they're retirees, they're the disabled, they're et cetera, et cetera. So beyond income itself, they need to be able to connect to the internet. Recognizing that need, we've agreed to this level, which includes the federal. I think we'd be okay. That's one of the questions we really need Caitlin to research a bit more for us.
So I kind of am a little nervous about including that specific information on how we should break down who gets free service and stuff, because ultimately I think that's one of those things that we now get into kind of policy making and stuff, and I think that's really, that's the job of the administration and such.
I agree, but it would be a policy recommendation. They have to decide whether they want to pursue the policy or not. They're looking for us to make recommendations about policy and policy related to this. And I think that's fair. We're saying we've gone out, we've looked at different communities. This is what they do. There is a community, at least one that we found so far, Fort Collins in Colorado, that has this type of approach, and it's interesting. There are different grant programs to help people pay for the internet. There's the Biden, what folks are calling the Biden bonus, which I think takes $30 a month off the cost of your internet service, if you're income qualified. I think one of the things to consider is that the city has the option to, if it chooses to, and I agree with you, Martin, on that, it's up to them to decide this. They can look beyond purely the end income. And as the city of Albany has done throughout its since the day it was founded, we set a standard. We set our own standard, our own standards for working with our people. I think we have a reputation for doing that, which has worked out well. And I think it is consistent with those policies. But again, that's my opinion. I'm one person. It's up to the group to decide whether we include that as a recommendation or not. And I am very open to, even if we do include it, making the wording reflect that there are diverse opinions upon this. So we will defer to the administration for the exact, if they choose to pursue that policy or not. I mean, bear in mind that anything that we say here does not bind the city. We're
Right.
purely
I
there.
mean,
Yeah.
I guess what I'm thinking is like, I think it'd probably be better for us to really just identify, various socioeconomic groups or,
Yes.
Who more than likely probably don't have access to it and whose access is probably critical. I mean, one category that I'm kind of thinking of is, school children,
Yeah.
school children or families with children. To qualify for free or reduced lunch, that doesn't necessarily mean you're below the poverty line and stuff, but
Correct.
it also signifies that family might be struggling and stuff. So we
Right.
could suggest that that's just one area that,
That's a
they
good idea.
look at.
No, that's a very good approach. The other thing we should say is the thing that occurred to me. I mean, children were definitely the first, and we saw that during the worst part of the pandemic, when schools were closed and everything was done via Zoom, or some type of online learning format. We could get the laptops to the children. We just couldn't get them the internet access to use the laptops.
Correct.
But also look at the increased presence of online medical appointments. Now we've gone beyond children. We're talking about seniors, the disabled, who had incredible challenges and put their health at risk going into a medical office for just a normal appointment, but didn't have the internet access to do their online medical appointments. Should they be included too? Because there is a clear need. And then there's the access to city services. Increasingly online. For a long time, City Hall was pretty much closed. Courts were closed. County offices were closed. People need to be able to access those services as well. Now we've gone beyond specific groups and more into, okay, we need to have this presence available from top to bottom in varying ways. Here are people that we know critically need this that right now don't have the access. What do we do for them? How do we split them out to those that can afford it but don't have the access because there is no access there, or might need a little adjustment in what they can afford. So we want to keep the cost down. That's why I think we've looked at doing the dark fiber net network, because that forces the different internet providers to compete with each other on price. It doesn't give one particular one the lockdown monopoly for the city, like you're seeing right now with Time Warner /Spec from cable. That does not make sense to do anymore. We always saw a minimal benefit from it, and there are a lot more firms to compete now. So if we do a dark fiber network and say we'll allow you to use this network to run your services through, but here are the rules. they can compete or not. Spectrum may not be willing to because they have their own network, but the rest would now be able to come in freely and say, well, Spectrum wants to charge you $60 a month. Hi, we're Verizon. We'll charge you $20 a month. That's to the benefit of all of the residents of the city of the city. Just one thing to consider. But yeah, Martin, I agree with you. We definitely need to look at the groups that are in need of being served that are not. That I think is the overriding. That's why we talked about the phased approach. Where are the areas where we know people, not only can they not afford it, there is no service. Where there's an incredible lack of service. Dan, I mean, you've been looking at that. I think, that to me is, if we do it as a phased approach, that's phase one. And that's why we need the maps.
Oh, yes, I know.
So hopefully we can get them. We know they exist.
I was like, worst case scenario, what can I use as a contingency? There's nothing, because everything is just like imaginary and fluff.
Well, here's the thing. This is where it gets dicey, because there is, I believe, a county planning department. So they may not have as detailed of the city, but it would be kind of embarrassing of, yeah, the city didn't fulfill its part of the charter, so we went to the county and they came up with it for us. That's kind of a political, no one wants that.
Mm-hmm.
But really, those are the only games in town for that data. It's going to be a planning department, probably. And right now we have city and we have county. I doubt the state has that kind.
Oh yeah, I don't think so.
And if they do, I'm not sure who in the pantheon of state departments.
Most likely they're just fed that information.
Right.
What would you recommend as a I guess like a deadline or so for like, okay, like let's move on. We've waited long enough. We need to move on to the backup.
Well, well, I mean, really, you sent the email to him last week. That's not a long period of time. I wouldn't have expected the data by this point. I would have expected the acknowledgement by this point. Given the fact we had the holiday, I'm not surprised at that. I'm not surprised that we don't have the data yet. The acknowledgement is basic professional courtesy. And when that tells us they've actually started working on it, and then gives us a timeline. So I agree with you. I would think
probably another 2 weeks, probably like, okay, today's the second, probably the 16th.
I would say the 16th for the data.
Okay.
Unless they come back and say, hey, we can't have it to you by the 16th, we have it for you by the 20th. Realistically, we would like more time to analyze it. We would have to talk to Owusu and the council and the administration at that point to say, hey, we know we said June 30th. We've been striving towards that. The reason might not be able to meet that is because we just got this data. If it's the first week of July that we send the report, will anyone cry? Probably not.
Okay, that's what I wanted your take on that as well.
Yeah.
If push come to shove and we actually get it past when we expected it, right, would that be okay?
Yeah. Bottom line is the goal is to produce a report that's actually meaningful. And I've had that conversation with Owusu, with Reja, and with Rachel McEnany both. So the goal of both the mayor's side and the council side is a meaningful report. So they're within that scope. They're willing to be reasonable, particularly if one side or the other is the reason why we're up against it. The goal is one big happy family, and I think we can achieve that. I think we're all committed to the same thing, which is making municipal broadband come to the city of Albany. Just people have different competing assignments. And and maybe they need some guidance as to what the priorities are. That is, that's not us. That's the administration decided to say, make this first, make this second, make this third, and then let us know. What I'm annoyed by, quite honestly, is they haven't let us know.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's much to ask. But that's me. We're operating we have no idea what's piled on whose desk because they haven't told us. So hopefully, when they read the email I sent today, and I'll follow up, because I did send that this afternoon. I'll check in with them by phone probably sometime tomorrow morning.
Great, thank you.
And just say, hey, did you get a chance to read this? Because I really need you to call somebody. And by somebody, I mean the planning department. So yeah, and then I'll let you know. I'm sure you'll be included in any email thread back and forth.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, of course. I mean, that's why this is going on. But we'll keep moving the goalpost ahead as best we can in anticipation of getting that data.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Yes.
I really do.
I just hope it's sooner rather than later.
So do I. As one who has had to write an entire 40-page paper with basically like 12 hours to go. Yeah, not what I want to have happen here. So let's, the goal is to have this time to really carefully review and give it the respect that it deserves in order to write the best preliminary report and then examine it further to do the finalized report and start to reach out to the public. That's the other thing here that we need to start to give some thought to, because I think that is an important component. Right now, it's been basically our little group saying, "Hey, this is what we think." Once we have that draft report, it's time to say, "Well, what do the rest of you think?" And then work that feedback into our final product. And sort of how we're going to actually explain this to a very diverse audience, many of whom have even less knowledge of city planning than we do. That's possible. I think that we can do it, but we need to think about it. Trust can only be built once. It can be lost many times. So we don't want to lose trust. And we want to build it early. So we'll work on that. That will be actually, I'm thinking if we get the report to them the end of June, we'll start to think about in greater detail what our outreach might be like during the month of July, and then lay that out.
That's great, because I was thinking, we should probably at least prime the general public about the service, because if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure this has been promoted, well, not from us within the group, as free internet in Albany. I was like, oh yeah, it should just be more, I think like the appropriate like term would probably be affordable internet and not free.
I think that's true. And I think that, it's an interesting problem. It would be nice if it were free.
Yeah, there's things that can offset it to make it free, but realistically, it's still somewhat of a cost.
Right, especially during the stage in which it's being built. That's why one of the considerations may be, should they create a special seek state support to create a special what they call a special district for say 4-city broadband. So basically what that is it's like the water authority. You're seeing a lot with categories of critical infrastructure, of which this is one. You see with fire districts out in towns. You see it with water water districts in both cities and towns. The advantage of it really is from the ability to have a tax or a fee, and to bond and to qualify for grants. So the special the people that run the special district itself, which are usually appointees by the city or town, have the authority to repair, build, do all the nuts and bolts on a daily basis with whatever their area is. They're still responsible to the city or the town for the quality, the timing, the pricing.
Yes.
And I think it gives a more focused attention to the particular work. Now, there's a reason that Mayor Whalen split off the water department into the water authority. It made sense. I think, to a great extent, it still does make sense. Fire department is still very much a professional thing, which is common for cities versus towns, where it's usually a volunteer fire department, so they have a special fire district, which comes up with ways to pay for the fire service. Municipal broadband may be something more akin to water. And actually, if the county gets into it, they may want to pursue that as well. So then the question is, well, who decides who's on the board? So you have so many seats from the city, so many seats from the towns, and then who appoints the head of whatever it is, and how is that managed and run? The good news is it gives a way to professionalize the work being done, but still maintain the full accountability to the voters, the taxpayers that it serves. Something for us to think about. Definitely a final decision on that's above our pay grade, but I think it's something to examine as to how it will be. How will the administration of this be done? And
Right.
what we suggest. Is it one more city department? Probably not a great idea. Or do you want to pursue it as an authority? Okay, for the city alone, that makes sense. Or do you want to work with different governments to do a real countywide scope of which we are a part and have a distinct role? So we can think about that. We have time on that. Beyond that, I think those are the main points I wanted to touch on. As I said, we'll have an email going out saying the idea is to create a working session with Jeff and the team leads to sort of consolidate what we have as a starting point. I'd like to have one of the dates next week for that. I'll talk to Jeff about that actually, because he couldn't be here tonight. The other thing which I'll do is touch base with Caitlin, see how she's doing. I meant to do that today, and the day got away from me to tell you the truth. I believe she thought she might be able to come back starting this week or next. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, hopefully she's okay.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I've got. Any questions from anyone about anything at all?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Diana, what about you?
No, yeah. I'm just a sitting duck right now.
You're fine. And believe me, we will. I'll make sure, and I know Jeff is on board with this too. We will make sure that the doors get rattled to get you what you need, because it's what we need. And Jess will make sure that you get the emails that show you the different pieces that have occurred since you were last involved.
Okay. And if you could also just, when you speak to whoever, tomorrow or whenever,
Yeah.
Just let me know the outcome. just so I'm aware.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Perfect.
I think one of the things is, which is to your credit, you've been great about getting things, about trying to reach out to people for us. And one of the things I want to clarify is you've been doing your job.
Yes. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah.
Seriously.
You are
Yes.
above and beyond, and
Thank you.
with you, and thank you, and it's great. you know, if an axe is going to be swung at anyone, it should not be at you. All
Okay.
right. I doubt it'll be an axe, more likely some kind of a stick, but you know, we'll see what's involved. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. All right, folks. If that's it, we can wrap up.
Mhm.
I'll take a motion to adjourn, even though we didn't have a quorum really.
I'll make that motion.
All right. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Okay, it's made and seconded. Thanks for coming, and we'll stay in touch by email, and we'll see you next.